Hey, this is Ice-T from Body Count, and you're listening to Matt and Pete on Macho Grande.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at www.audibletrial.com/Macho Grande. Over 100,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Hi guys, welcome to episode 191 of Macho Grande. I'm Pete.
And I'm Matt.
And we just kicked off with Svalbard, if I'm saying that right. That track was called Unpaid Intern. Those guys have been around since like 2011 and they're from Bristol, and I've heard the name around. I've never really heard them before. I love that track. So yeah. I've got huge hopes now. The album's coming out end of May via Holy Raw. It's called It's Hard to Have Hope. I absolutely love that. I think it's amazing.
Yep, same. I thought that was absolutely incredible, to the point where I went on iTunes and bought their entire back catalogue.
Oh, wow, cool.
I
I mean, as soon as I heard it, I was like, I've got to fire this over to you.
Yeah, and this is right up my street. This is everything I really sort of like go for in a sort of fresh band. The sound is awesome, and yeah, their back catalogue is fantastic. I went and just got everything, even all EPs, the first album, and the re-release of all their EPs on a discography retrospective, where everything was re-recorded or reproduced. Sorry.
Right.
And remixed. So I've just got everything again, and it's amazing. I really love this band, and I cannot wait to see them live. I'm very excited about the fact that I've never heard of these guys, and they've got such a wealth of music to pull from.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's really cool. So coming up today, yeah, we've got a load of good music. A lot of it's quite kind of post-rocky and heavy stuff. We're going to do Conjurer as album in review. We're going to have a look at their album called Mire. And Matt has also set me a homework section, so we're going to be having a chat about Shellac a bit later as well.
Yep.
How are you? You got to go to a gig.
I did. I went to Envision's High Rise, headlined by Our Hollow, Our Home. Our Hollow, Our Home. And yeah, it was a great night out. High Rise are a small up-and-coming band that I didn't really know much about, apart from their sort of like video that they had posted on their Facebook page. But their set was really good. I think they played with a lot of passion. They're from Kingston upon Thames.
Cool.
They're really good. Envisions weren't really my kind of cup of tea. They had some interesting sort of bits going on, but I wasn't really sort of feeling it. They had some questionable sort of like shout outs and sort of lyric bits that were a bit, I don't know, weren't really for me, but the crowd seemed buzzing for them. And then Our Hollow, Our Home were just incredible. Like it was good to see the buzz, bearing in mind like they've only done like an EP, single, and then the debut album, and it came out the start of 2016 or end of 2016, start of 2017. It was somewhere around then. So like it was real good sort of buzz with the audience, and everyone was jumping up and down. Their music was brilliant. I was really, really impressed with their performance, and I really think that they're going to be one to watch out for.
I need to go back and listen to that album, because I remember thinking it was ace, and then I just kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, it is really good for
Heartsick,
fans. Sort of, for fans of like Bury Tomorrow, and yeah, that kind of sort of what would you call it? Architects, well, not early Architects. I'm thinking like. I'm trying to think of a sort of good comparison, but Bury Tomorrow is a good...
It's got that kind of slick production as well, hasn't it? That kind of proper beefy, like modern metalcore, you know?
Yeah, UK sort of metalcore with the good choruses. Like the clean vocalist is awesome. Their sort of riffs and melodies.
There's a touch of Parkway in there as well, isn't there?
Yeah, they're super catchy, and they're already working on their second album, so I think like they're a band really to watch out for. And if anyone else is lucky enough to have caught them on this, because it's only like a 7 or 8 date UK tour, I'm hoping they do a lot more this year, but if they're working on a second album, it might be something that they go quiet now for a while before the next album. But definitely check out their videos on YouTube. They've got, I mean, like, the album itself, Heartless, is just like almost every song on it could be a single, so it's definitely worth checking out.
Was it busy?
Very.
Nice.
I'm surprised. Good. Yeah, for the small venue it was in Norwich.
I didn't know that one. Was it B2? Did you say?
Yeah, the B2, which is just next door to the Brickmakers, which is part of the Brickmakers. Sorry, the B2. But yeah, great little venue, great sound. Yeah, and it said there's about 100, 150.
Nice.
Which, given the size of the venue, it was a nice sort of buzz. And like I said, everyone seemed there for that band, which was great. Everyone knew the words. So, yeah, brilliant. Really, really good gig.
Cool. And obviously we've been away for a few. It's been a really manic couple of weeks. So there's been a ton of albums. And actually, do you know what? This year already is shaping up incredible. I don't know about you. I don't know how you're getting on with stuff. But some of the albums this year, like, I cannot stop listening to that Turnstile album.
I haven't got on with that.
I mean, it's not my normal cup of tea at all, but I just love it. The hooks have just caught me. And much as, like I was saying, there's bits of Marmosette's where I'm like, yeah, that's just really good, even though it's not my thing. And that Turnstile album, I just adore it. It's so full of just little subtle like mannerisms that I really like, and just the way the riffs go and the way songs chop and change, and it's just so full of energy and catchy.
Okay, I mean, I've listened to it after your sort of recommendation a few weeks back, and it just hasn't clicked with me yet.
Right.
I hear the sort of like Deftones-esque sounds, and in fact, the band it reminded me of, in particular, was Snapcase.
Oh yeah.
It's very Snapcase, and I do like Snapcase, but it just hasn't like cracked me yet. So
I think come back to it in a bit. Yeah,
I think it's a combination of some of the other albums that have been coming out over the last week or 2 weeks.
And the one, I don't think you've listened to this yet because we had a brief chat, but the one that has completely blown me away is Greyhaven. I mentioned them a couple of shows back because I'd heard a couple of tracks that were really good. That album is stunning, and again, the hooks in it, I mean, it's very Norma Jean, it's very Every Time I Die. The hooks are massive when they go there, and it's just everything I want in one of those kind of bands. Just scratchy, nasty riffs with big hooks. It's incredible. So, yeah, really recommend Greyhaven. I absolutely love that. That's
going to be on my next week of listening, because I haven't got that at all yet.
I'm sure you're going to dig that. And then the other one, there's two more that have completely blown me by surprise. One of them is Rollo Tomasi, and I've not really been a fan or known their previous work, and that album is absolutely stunning as well. So really, really digging that. And then Willhaven have just come just out the park smashing with their new album, Muerta. Muerta's just, it's nasty. And I think that's it for me. So how about you? I'm sure we're going to chat about Willhaven.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Willhaven, I've only done one full listen through it, but already it's a massive step back in the direction that I've missed from this band. It sounds huge. It sounds like a natural progression from, and it's just gone out of my head.
Voix Dyer? Is it called?
No, I was thinking Carpe Diem.
Oh, Carpe Diem, yeah.
Yeah, because going back with this band, like Hierophant and the Open Mind to Open the Mind to Discomfort and Voir Dire, I've just never clicked with, never really sort of got on with at all. Whereas this just feels like a continuation of the band that wrote those first three albums.
Yeah, totally.
And it doesn't feel like a sort of like a cynical return to the band name.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know Hierophant was using Grady, or not? Sorry, Grady wasn't there for that album.
Yeah.
Which is fine, that's understandable, and then he sort of returned later, but this actually feels like them writing like Willhaven again.
It's so spot on. I mean, there's a track, I think it's track 2, Winds of Change, and there's this nasty guitar bend, like the second guitar does this bending note, and it is so just gloriously one of the most horrible sounding things I've ever heard, and it repeats it for ages. I absolutely adore it.
And that's only a drone that Willhaven can and will do. So yeah, that's been on
cool.
The really good EP, the Fever 333.
Oh, I've not heard that yet.
It's come out and it is really good.
And this is Jason Butler and Arik in Proto, isn't it?
Yes, and it's very different. It's kind of got it's got the vibe of Let Live, obviously with Jason's vocals, but it's also got a very sort of Rage Against the Machine, a slightly sort of, I was going to say like Head Automatica, but it's not really that kind of sort of, it's kind of very sort of drum and bassy and hip hop. But then it's got those sort of Let Live choruses in places, and then him going mental. I mean, it's clear that he is, a true punk at heart, and he's just it's all about his aesthetic and what he wants to do. His, it's clear that this is something he's really passionate about, and I can see now why, if he's wanting to do this, why Let Live?
Well, we had this discussion, and obviously that last Let Live album was so much more, headed in a mainstream direction, and we had the conversations like, well, where's that come from? Is it internal? Is it management? And yeah, clearly it wasn't Jason Butler, maybe.
Yes. And if this is anything to go, I think this really holds to that kind of DIY punk aesthetic, and it's definitely worthwhile checking out. I don't know if it'll be for everyone, and certainly I don't think a lot of all Let Live fans will transfer over to this band. But if you're a fan of that sort of Rage Against the Machine hip hop metal style, then there's some really interesting things going on in this.
Cool.
Also, Black Pete's new single is amazing. Let's just say that. Can't Sleep. Fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
That's
good.
come out since we last recorded. I cannot wait for that new album. And also, so yeah, as you mentioned, Svalbard I've been listening to a lot. Conjurer, Rolo Tomasi as well.
Are you digging it?
It's really, really good.
It is, isn't it?
That opening couple of tracks are incredible.
And the last
especially
song.
That opening song is enough to just get you hooked into the rest of it, because it was like...
Well, I didn't realise she did,
very different.
Yeah, because her vocals are really nice and soft, and I didn't know if they did much of that before. I don't remember hearing that side of them.
Yes, they have done that sort of thing.
Right, okay. And yeah, that just draws you in.
Not in this way.
Okay.
Like, this is a definite progression, and a change in writing style compared to their older sort of spazzier mathcore kind of music. I mean, there are still elements of that in this, but this feels a lot more mature, and a lot more thought has gone into the craft of what seems to be, what they're recording. And then also the new live album from Northlane, Analog Future. Yeah. I've had that on a lot, and Bless the Falls new album as well. I've had that on.
Yeah. Well, so what's the Northlane one like? Because I just don't tend to do live albums these days.
I really like a good live album, and this is a good live album. The production sounds great. It's also great hearing those songs sung. Certainly the old songs being sung by. His name's just gone right out of my head.
Is it Marcus? Or was he
Marcus? Yeah, Marcus, in place of Where Adrian. So doing the live versions of like Quantum Flux and Disposition, and it's a good set list as well that they've kind of mixed in. Bearing in mind each song's recorded in a different venue, but it's a really good live album,
right, okay.
And yeah, well worth checking out. So yeah,
what
is
about
my listening plan.
New Parkway Drive?
Oh god. Oh god. Which one?
They're both fucking shit.
Which one? The bad one or the really bad one?
The really bad one makes me want to be sick.
Oh.
And I just don't know, because everyone else seems to just love them, and just they seem to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I just think they're getting worse and worse and worse, and I just don't understand now where they're just living in what seems to be, we've heard 2 songs, just the most safe now, boring, they're heading towards Five Finger Death Punch meets Avenged meets Metallica. It's like, what are you doing? And then he's still got that horrible King 810 stuff in there as well.
Yeah, the thing is, Winston's never going to be a singer in that sort of melodic sense. He's never going to do sort of Architects kind of mixing of growls and singing.
Yeah, okay.
Or even what Bring Me the Horizon. I'm trying to think of similar level of bands that are all of the original same sort of metalcore ilk. So they've kind of gone in that different direction of, instead of sort of focusing on the metalcore and sort of bringing that to a different new mass, or going into pop and electronic like Bring Me, they've gone in that new metal direction.
I just don't know where this is going to go for them though.
Yeah, and look. To anyone who knows and has listened for a long time, I absolutely adored Parkway Drive when they first came on the scene.
Yeah, and I still adore the first, certainly 3 albums.
Yeah, and I get absolutely no pleasure from kicking them, but this is so bad.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope that the rest of the album perhaps isn't like this, but
Yeah, I just don't know. Although, I did watch some footage from the Secret London show they did
the
recently.
Underworld, yeah.
The Underworld, which would have been an amazing show to have gone to, because like that was one of the venues I saw them on the debut tour.
Oh, nice, cool.
The debut UK tour. Like, I think I saw them on like 8 dates from that first ever UK run.
Yeah, I remember you doing that. Yeah, cool.
Which was insane, like traveling up like the country, seeing it. Like the very first show, there was literally sort of like the members of the other bands playing, me and my mate Gareth, and then maybe sort of like 5 or 6 other people, and that was the crowd, and it was in an old converted snooker hall, so all the snooker tables had been pushed to the back of the room, and it was just a really weird sort of like, yeah, it was a really weird night, but like that was incredible. Like down outside, it was near Dover,
right?
I can't remember the name of the town, but yeah, that was an absolutely amazing gig. But yeah, I just don't get the direction. I just don't get.
No, I mean, if they're going after just that much more, well, I mean, just much more mainstream, heading towards that Avenged Sevenfold, Metallica, Five Finger Death Punch sound. But obviously what you got to bear in mind is that their crowd up to this point have been, scene kids and hardcore, and just not that crowd at all. So
no, I mean, the thing is, like, I don't get. I suppose this lends to the other side of the argument where, like, we don't seem to understand Five Fingers' popularity or King 810's hype, and the audience that did get behind them. Like, I mean, I don't get it, but they've crossed over into that market, and obviously it is clearly a healthy market.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give it that. I mean, all that stuff is selling well, and we've said, at Download, those are the bands that draw in the numbers. I mean, I'll be honest, Five Finger, they're probably the most requested band at the club on Saturday nights at the moment, and have been for a while.
Maybe it's a generational thing, or it is just an accessible thing, because like they are one of the bands that would easily get played back to back on Krang TV or
I mean, I would say it's an older crowd though. That.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's one of those, like, here's my hot controversial take on it. Maybe it is just, it's that kind of middle of the road that's why it appeals to people.
You could be right, and yeah, I mean, we don't do middle of the road, really, do we?
No, we like the sort of the bands that stand in the dark and play with projectors.
As I just said, I just want to hear Will Haven bending that note out of tune from the other guitar
for 2 hours.
For 2 hours, and I'll just be happy.
Yeah, I mean, and I suppose that's the thing. I mean, like, Parkway have fair play to them. Like, they have and
their venues getting bigger.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they were a MySpace band when I first heard of them, and found them like. It was Smoke 'Em If You Got 'Em on their MySpace player, and then the announcement that they were going to come over to the UK, and like that's when I got on board. So to have seen them go from like this old snooker hall to now, headlining the second stage at Download this summer, and having toured the world, seen the live DVDs, fair play to them.
Yeah, totally.
They have completely transcended any projected expectation for that band. It's not for me anymore. I don't get it.
No.
So it is shocking.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see no doubt we'll talk about the album when it comes out. So let's get into another new track. This track is called In Terratron, and it's by The Ever Living. Now, we played The Ever Living a couple of years ago. I think they had an EP out, and we had a chat about them then. They're from London. This is going to be the debut album, which is coming out on the 4th of May. They had some interesting news recently, because the video for this track, they went over and they shot the video in a disused Soviet building somewhere on the Russian border with a crew of local kids. So like the local kids, I think they'd met on a previous tour. They'd met somebody and made a contact, and these kids said, look, we'll film your video. So they went over and they did the day's shooting. And then something weird happened, and they basically got abandoned on their own in the middle of nowhere, and the kids took off. And there was this whole thing where they were basically stuck and stranded in somewhere on this Russian border for like 24 hours, 48 hours, something like that. Fortunately, they managed to reconvene. Apparently, one of the kids had been, or the local authorities had been searching for somebody, and it all got a bit weird. But fortunately, they all made it back home safe, and they managed to meet up with the kids, and they've got the footage back. So this is online. You can go and watch the video for this. But yeah, quite a weird story. But they're a really cool band. I'm looking forward to hearing this full album when it comes out.
Yeah, wait, hang on a minute. Like, what?
I know.
Sorry
it's
to
mental.
stop you there, but like, I'm kind of a bit like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, right. I'm going to be reading that while you play this song.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's online. Like this story about what happened. I mean, I remember like they put up the photo saying, "Oh yeah, we're going over here," and I was like, "Oh, that's quite a weird place to go and shoot your music video." And then they said, "Oh yeah, it's the local kids are filming it as well." And it's like, right, okay, hope that goes well. And yeah, it didn't.
And where are these guys from originally?
They're from London.
Right.
And we did play them a couple of years ago. And,
yeah, no, I recognise the name, but I mean, it sort of like, there's smacks of kind of, hostile.
Yeah, totally.
In this story, which is kind of like a bit strange. But yeah, okay.
Check this out and definitely go and see the video online as well. And yeah, go Google The Ever Living. Really cool band. Right, so that was The Ever Living. That track was called In Terratron.
In Terratron.
Alright, should we do the news?
Yes, it's time for the news. Let's do the news.
I tell you what, we'll start off with Arctangent, because it was me having a chat to you about the Arctangent lineup that led to the conversation where we realised I'd never heard a single Shellac track before, so you've set me an album for homework today.
I did, yeah.
So, Arctangent have released not all the lineup, but much more, and they've announced Glassjaw and Shellac as their two headliners, and then I think And So I Watch You From Afar are headlining like the Thursday night stage. And there's a ton of cool bands. There's a load of bands that we like. They've got Zealand, they've got Black Peaks, Rollo Tomasi, Pelican, La Dispute, Pianos Become the Teeth, Bosk, Alcest. It's just, once again, just a really cool lineup.
Yeah, they do always manage to pick some of the premier kind of cult beardy bands. For lack of a better word.
So that's pretty cool. Whether I can afford, and because this summer's looking expensive already for festivals, and
Yeah.
we're going to have to do 2,000 Trees for At the Drive-In and Shikari.
Oh, definitely.
So I don't know, but we'll see. But yeah, very cool lineup.
So, what have we learned since the last announcement for a new Tool album? Nothing, but it might come out.
They've officially now said they are actually in the studio, and they've also announced that they're recording completely analog. They're recording to tape. So it's almost as if they want to make it as long and hard a process as possible.
Yes.
Thrice have started recording the new album.
I
Cool.
saw that. Very excited.
Core 10 are going to release a new single next month. Apparently this is going to be their heaviest one yet.
I'm kind of excited.
I'm very excited.
I'm not very excited, but I cannot wait to review that. Black Peaks, we mentioned at the top of the show, brand new single, Can't Sleep. They've signed with Rise Records. I think that's a fantastic nab for that label.
That is good. Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that label choice from them.
No, but the band is. This band are destined for great things. That debut album garnered the top slot of so many polls.
Yeah,
that year,
including both of ours.
including both of ours. That it would be shocking if. I bet there was a big bidding war over them, and so that's a great sort of secure for Rise Records, because I think that's a good label, a good different band for that label as well, like you were saying.
There's been a couple of magazine change-ups lately. So firstly, NME, I know we don't normally cover things that NME say, but they've been an institution for like 60 odd years. They've now officially said that they're cancelling its print magazine, other than when they do special like one-offs. And they just put that down to being it's just financially unviable now. So, yeah, interesting. Terrorizer magazine as well, which they've been around for like something like 24 years. Weirdly, haven't had a new issue since November, yet people are still being billed. And they put a statement the other day saying, please bear with us. Times have been difficult. We are still active. So,
yeah, that's not a good sign. I mean, I know that's certainly what a lot of magazines have sort of done in the past, or that have then gone bankrupt, or gone to the administration.
I hope all is well in that camp, because Terrorizer, like, they are a great team, and they've been around, well, like I say, like 24 years, really passionate, and have been there for a long time. So I hope all's well. And then just a little nod to Kerrang, just to say how Kerrang has been really good just recently. I don't know if you've read it recently.
I've only read it in store recently, but the content and the layout and design of it does seem a lot more
the whole thing has improved.
Interesting. Just some of the bands that we were reviewing and talking about were far more interesting than say a year ago, where
well, I had given up.
Yeah.
Much as I had with, and I loved rock sound for years, but like you, just had to give up on rock sound because I'm clearly not the demographic anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Kerrang, very cool. That's good.
Yeah, one of my up-and-coming picks from a couple of years back at the end of year chart, the band Wrong have got their new album coming out. They've got a release date for it, and they've released a new video. Again, following on from what they were doing on the first album with that sort of helmet style.
Yeah, you really did that
mid-90s.
album. I need to go back, listen to it properly.
So good. The new single is awesome. I can't wait for that album. I'm going to get a pre-order in soon for that.
Nice.
What else? Oh, did you see, on a sort of like slightly off tangent, did you see the Ghost Inside singer Jonathan Vigil sort of talking about his recovery process?
No.
Like he had sort of like bit the bullet sometime recently about deciding just to fuse his ankle. So he's had like 3 pins put into his ankle to fuse it solid. Just because he couldn't keep up with the pain, so that again is now going to limit a lot he can do in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the future holds now for Ghost Inside, really. I mean, he's probably going to be walking with a cane now for the rest of his life. Obviously, for those that don't know, the Ghost Inside a couple of years back on tour had a really nasty bus crash. And several of the members have, either had amputations or, like spine surgery or, knee, because of the way the bus crashed headlong, they were all in their bunks. So that's like sort of spine injuries and leg and foot injuries or amputations. So that as a band, they are still to sort of return. I mean, I could see them coming back as a studio band. Certainly, but it's just a shame, and he sort of shared some photographs of his recent surgery.
Decapitated have released their first official statement, which is online. You can read the whole thing. I mean, basically it boils down to, obviously they were cleared of all charges, and they are ready to return, and they've announced 2 festival slots so far.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Is this one of those, like, have they burned people's trust? Are people still going to be behind them? I mean, like, that album, we talked about this before, was, like, towards the end of the year, that was kind of, like, buzzing to be in those charts, and then the allegations and everything that happened, it just seemed to force them out.
Yeah,
no, it did. Really.
Yeah, I mean, that's a terrible thing that they've gone through. So, yeah, hopefully they can bounce back from this. But as you say, they were poised. I mean, considering they've been a band for quite a while as well, to suddenly now have this album and buzz around you as an extreme, sort of death metal band.
And it was literally right after it came out as well. I mean, it was within like 2 or 3 weeks of the album dropping.
But yeah, false accusations, and they've been cleared of everything. So yeah, hopefully people can get back behind this.
Yeah.
I don't think I put anything else down. I mean, there's Under Oath to talk about as well.
Oh yeah, there's On Earth. On Earth have started tracking their new album, which I'm very excited about because the last On Earth album was amazing.
Yes, it was.
Same, Bring Me the Horizon apparently are working on their new material as well.
Did you see what they've said about
that? Sort of, yes. It wasn't exactly. I did have a conversation with one of our listeners on Twitter about this.
All right.
Doesn't exactly scream that it's going to be my cup of tea, but then the last couple of albums haven't been my cup of tea.
So they've said that it's going to be much more pop, and they're taking influences from 21 Pilots.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, again, we'll just have to see. We'll see where the fans go on this. I mean, I have to say, I think Fall Out Boy have gone too pop, and certainly in our world seems to have backfired because there is no buzz about that new album at all. I mean, I don't know what that relates to in terms of ticket sales. And I think Paramore have done the same thing. They're one of the most requested bands. Nobody's really asking for anything off that new album. It's just too poppy for our world, I think.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know whether that then relates to your average pop fan, whether they're now, doing really good numbers with those kind of people, but...
Yeah, it does sort of. I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, obviously, we'll check it out. I mean, like, the last 2 albums haven't exactly been. They're not, like, terrible. They're just not for me. They're aggressively not what I would listen to. In the same way, like, compared to, say, like, Parkway is just, like, even though it's not for me, like, the Parkway one is just, I think it's not for me, but it's also very bad. Whereas, the Bring Me albums, I can say, they're not for me. But I think what they're doing is it's
the
still
songwriting's
strong.
great. Yeah.
It's just not for me. Like I say, with Parkway, it's just that's not good at all. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, just sort of following on from what you were talking about with Kerrang. Did you see their 21 best US metalcore album chart that they did?
No.
Just some of the bands that were featured in it, which just for Kerrang, really sort of surprising. So you got in Converge, Jane Doe, Norma Jean, Shy Hulud, Zayo, Poison the Well, The Chariot, Integrity, Vision of Disorder, Killswitch Under Oath, Earth Crisis, Coalescence, Nora. God forbid.
I used to love Nora.
Yeah, Nora. That album's amazing.
Yeah.
Watch.
Cool. But that's what I mean. Every time I've seen Kerrang lately, it's just been good.
Yeah, it was just to see those names in Kerrang again. Starkweather, Snapcase, Dillinger, Between the Buried and Me, Cave In.
Cool.
Again, a great list. That it's good that Kerrang sort of acknowledging that again, because their readership, if you just take the demographic from say last year, would never know these bands pretty much.
No.
Because these are all sort of, in fact, almost everyone on that list is from sort of late 90s to early 2000s.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway.
Anything else?
I just had... That's it.
All right, so let's sneak in another quick track before we do album in review. Don't know this band. They're called Revenge Season. We're going to play a track called Blood Remains Forever. And this is off their new EP, which is called Eternal Despair. It's out now. They're from Atlanta. They formed in 2016, and there's a couple of EPs prior to this. So here you go. This is Revenge Season. Alright, so that was Revenge Season. Let's do album in review. We're going to have a chat about Conjurer. They've just released their debut album. It's called Mire. These guys have been slowly just really, really building a solid foundation. And they've been around since 2015 and lots of buzz around the band. Kerrang gave this album 5 Ks. Metal Hammer gave it 9 out of 10.
Wow.
We played Wretch a few shows ago and I saw them I put Atan on at the club, and I got Conjurer to headline, and they were really good.
Okay.
Really, really, really cool band. So, yeah, this album, Maya, I'd not heard anything prior to this other than watching that one live show. And we've not had a chat about this album at all. But I think it's fantastic. I don't know how you've got on with it.
Yeah,
Are you digging it?
Yeah, really digging it.
So,
it's a beast.
So this is it is a weird mix of like doom and hardcore, and there's post rock, and there's sludge, and there's black metal, and the songs weave, and they're quite long, and they blend all those moments so well. And I definitely think it's an album that it rewards you with repeat listens. Like more and more little subtleties come out, and I love that there's this charm of like just poking a riff out for like this quick little frantic burst, and then it'll go again, then it'll head into a different direction. You've got two singers in the band who contrast each other really, really nicely. The clean vocals get used sparingly, so that when they do come in, I think they're so effective. And I've had this, pretty solid. I mean, I've probably gone like 10 plus listens. And I'm still.
I'm not that far in. I'm probably like 4 or 5. There's definite strong vibes of like Cult of Luna.
Yeah, there's a big chunk of Neurosis in there as well. But obviously, with like Neurosis, don't go fast. And this when it hits hard, and they go really full on at times.
Yeah. Which then it sort of bleeds into like, if you're going to try and, for people who haven't listened to this, comparisons, or you're going from sort of like Cult of Luna into sort of Converge with, we talked about at the top of the show, the sort of Will Haven drones and the Neurosis drones. And again, these guys are a young band.
Yeah.
Like you listen to it, and we're just listing bands with members in their late 30s and 40s. So it's very strange to have a new band, an up-and-coming band, with this buzz.
Well, apparently they got together because I think it was Brady. He put out a post saying, anybody want to jam stuff along the lines of Gojira meets Black Dahlia murder?
Wow.
So that was like some of their influence. But apparently they'd sort of, bang out influences to each other and listen to a load of stuff. But that isn't sort of what they ended up sounding like. And instead, there is just this mush of styles that somehow just really balances so well.
Yeah, there's moments that are just sort of relentless, and then there's also bits that are just kind of sort of really breathtaking.
I think every member shines on this as well. Like some of the bass parts are great. The drummer's amazing. It really is a solid debut album. This. It's
like I don't know. There's just seemed, well, certainly for our the type of music that we listen to, this is bang in that center point, and like that sort of shows for a promising future, because like, I'd be stunned if any of the bands we've just listed came out with an album like this. If for just a band, a new band to drop such a debut is incredible. And to know that these guys now have a long life ahead of them, or what we hope is a long life ahead of them, it's just got me very excited.
I went to go out. It is out now, but when I tried to get it the other day, I couldn't find it in HMV, so might have to Amazon this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that this is an album that is going to sort of like, you're going to lose interest in a week or so. I think this is one of those albums now that you will listen to for a long time.
Every time I put it on now, especially as you're getting to know certain parts, but then you notice something else. It's also a great one for headphones as well, because there's some really nice little quiet moments that really shine through. But the vocals are really good, and as I say that, they don't happen very often, but when those soft vocals, when they use it, it's done so well, and they're actually, I use the word hook lightly, but they are memorable parts.
Yes.
So you kind of come away from it, and you're like, and there's some of the riffs, like there's some proper like stompy riffs. The last track in particular has got an amazing riff in it, with quite I don't know about you, but it's quite an odd choice of like chord progression as well.
Yeah, well, it's very sort of like
It just doesn't end on a note that you think it would end on. It's like an in between.
If you're going to label it, it's kind of like a progressive black metal, because it is just, it doesn't go in the directions you think it's going to go, but then it's got that kind of, it's got the extreme metal feel, but then, like I said, it doesn't take those turns that you would expect a standard extreme metal track to go in. But then, that's sort of juxtaposed with the fact that, like, it'll go in, then it'll suddenly go into a groove, or it'll go into, a sludgy bit, or, it's a very sort of, it's an album of extremes.
I was going to say, without being sort of spazzy, it chops and changes well as well. Because, I mean, most of the tracks are sort of 6 minutes. But, I mean, there's a couple of, it's like a 4 minute, but most of them are like 6, 7, and 8 minutes long, something like that.
Yeah.
And yet these changes happen, and it's so kind of smooth the way they blend them all together.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's very good. I've not seen a finished copy, so I can't really talk about the artwork. But I think it's fantastic, and everybody should go out and buy it.
Yeah. I think that this is going to be one that is given. I mean, even just sort of like given the sort of glowing reviews it's getting, I'd be stunned if this wasn't in the top 3 of people's end of year charts already. Like, that's the sort of like level of appreciation it's getting from other reviewers, and it's just a question of getting that out to the listeners, because this is a band that are definitely worthy of the hype.
Yeah.
Like, you can read these sorts of like glowing reviews for a debut album, but it's like, no, seriously, this is one of them. Go get on it, because like, if you like that kind of extreme, sludgy, doomy, experimental yet exciting metal, this is your band. And like, these guys, I mean, well, it's the first album. How do you top this?
I know. Yeah.
When it's your starting point, like, that's the kind of level we're at here.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if this isn't in my end of year list. So if you go online, you can go to facebook.com/Conjurer UK. Their Bandcamp is conjureruk.bandcamp.com. There's a video certainly for the Mire. I don't know, there might be more, but I remember them bringing out a video for the Mire.
Yeah, the Mire video is the only one I've seen.
Yeah, I don't know how much more you want to say about it, really, because we don't know the band that well, and that was quite an easy album in review, as we both just glowed about it.
Yeah, and I think that it is just, you got to go out and say that is literally the thing to take from this, is like, you need to go check it out, hear it for yourself.
So, numerical rating, and what track would you like to play?
Oh, I don't know what about track.
Well, we already played Wretch, so not Wretch.
Okay.
I'd have said my personal favourites is maybe Hollow or Thankless, or even the last track.
Yeah, I was going to say sort of Thankless, but it is a longer one.
Thankless is a bit longer. That's got some of the clean vocals in as well, though, which is nice. But mind you, the first track's a banger.
Okay, well, let's go with the numerical review first. Where are you sat on it?
I'm going to go 9 out of 10.
Yeah, okay. I was going to go 9.5.
Nice, cool.
Like, it's just shy of, dare I say it, perfection. I mean, like, it's hard to, it's really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's
really,
solid.
really good.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Shoes and I don't care. They're all good.
Okay, let's go with 2, which is Hollow, because it's
Okay.
because otherwise it is quite a long track to stick in the middle of quite a long show. Otherwise, so
Okay.
yeah. All right, here you go. So that was our review of Conjurer. Let us know your thoughts as always. You can email info@machograndepodcast.co.uk, or you can leave us a voicemail. The voicemail we can play on the show as well, which is pretty cool, is 05603 689 842. Homework section. Now, we've not done this in a while.
No.
So as we spoke in the news, Arctangent announced Shellac, and Matt and I were chatting online, and I said, I obviously know the name Shellac, but they're one of those bands, never heard a single track, and you promptly pointed me in the right direction and sent me a whole pile of albums.
Yeah, I pretty much sent you everything, basically.
So you set At Action Park as the
yes.
as a homework section for me to listen to. So I've not heard any of this before. So I've given this a good... I've been through it quite a few times because we've had a couple of weeks to stew on this. So I've probably gone through it, probably somewhere 7 or 8 listens through the whole thing. I've not listened to anything else in the discography, and I haven't read anything about the band, so I'm still completely none the wiser as to who Shellac are, when they were or are, or anything about the band. So you'll have to fill me in a little bit.
Okie dokie. Well, for those like Pete that don't know anything about this band, they're from Chicago. They formed in 1992. They are composed of... They've been sort of 3 members since then. Steve Albini, who you probably know.
I didn't realise that. I feel like an idiot not knowing this.
Yeah, Steve Albini.
Wow. So he's a really famous producer, if any of you don't know who Steve Albini is.
Yeah, a famous recording engineer and producer assistant, Bob Weston, who has worked a lot with Steve Albini, and Todd Traynor, who he's also sort of like, he plays under sort of various other like acts as well, but like he's been their long-term drummer. Obviously when you have Steve Albini attached to anything, you kind of already know this type of sound that you're going to get.
Well, obviously the first thing that struck me was the production. Mm-hmm. So, and like I said, I deliberately didn't look at when this album came out or when they were sort of most active. And that does kind of now make sense that you've sort of said, from the sort of early 90s. Because the first thing that struck me is just how different the production is to anything we would hear nowadays. Yeah. Because this is this kind of scratchy, lo-fi punk, but still sounds amazing somehow. Yeah.
No, At Action Park came out in 1994, right, which is just after the release of probably the album that most people will have heard Steve Albini for, is Nirvana's In Utero album. And obviously if you're familiar with the type of sound that's on that, the At Action Park album kind of is an even more kind of stark and bleak recording production compared to the In Utero album. But again, that's kind of what Steve Albini is known for. He has a very particular way of setting up mics. He has a very particular sort of all analog, no digital, no overdubbing.
He's worked with a lot of kind of noise bands and art stuff as well.
Yeah, PJ Harvey, Pixies, to the other sort of extreme of sort of, like Bush, and I'm trying to think of because there's just, there is a wealth of bands that he has done production on, and again, a bit of backstory about Steve Albini. He doesn't take points on an album he's produced like normal sort of engineers or producers do. So they get a cut of an album sales for the rest of their lives. He doesn't do that. He's there to do a job. He does the job. He sees it, he's just there. He's like a plumber or an electrician. You give him his fee, he's paid, he's happy, and he runs the famous sort of Pachyderm Studios, which again, loads of famous albums like In Utero have been recorded there. But working with Pixies, Godspeed.
I was going to say he's done Yankee, didn't he? And he's done Times of Grace as well by Neurosis.
Helmet, Manic Street Preachers, just to name a few. Veruca Salt. He's done Neurosis. So of course, yeah.
He's worked with Mogwai as well, hasn't he? I think.
Anyway,
very cool.
Right. So, obviously they've released other albums since '94. So,
Is this your favourite then? Is that why you picked it? Or
yeah, it's my favourite of their albums. But like 98's Terraform, and 2000's 1000 Hertz in particular is a really good album as well. And then subsequently, like their most recent album was their 5th album, which came out in 2014. So 5 albums in 20 years. But again, obviously, he's a busy person with Bob Weston, the bassist, who also worked with him a lot as the engineer.
So do they tour a lot as well? Or...
Yes and no.
Have you seen them before?
No, never had a chance to see them.
So does this make you more? Because obviously, when we spoke about Arctangent, I was like, "Oh, it's Shellac," but I didn't. There was no excitement there for me because I'd never heard them before. So is this enough to make you? Would you definitely go then because of this?
Oh well, they would. If I went, they'd definitely be one of the bands that I would want to see because they are on my like having never seen list that I'd like to get ticked off. That's a list that I've slowly been working through over the years, but I've never had a chance to sort of tick them off. Right. But again, I think it sort of comes from the fact that they have been sort of sporadic, especially since living over in England, like being active. Like 1000 Hertz came out in 2000, and then there was a 7-year gap until the next album, and then there was a 7-year gap after that,
right? Till
Dude Incredible, the last album. And if you think like they only have ever come over to do things like curate a South by to create a what's the
All Tomorrow's Parties?
Yeah, All Tomorrow's Parties.
Or I'll Be in the Mirror, one of those.
Exactly it. So it'll be things like that. They've come over to create one-off things, cool. And in a similar way, like Godspeed, they went away and they only come over for specific things, and this isn't his day job. Mm-hmm. As well, so it's kind of like the band isn't that kind of a project. It's like that's his music project that he sort of does every now and then. But yeah, I think the last time they came to the UK that I would have had a chance to see them playing before now is 2013, All Tomorrow's Parties. So again, just not very convenient. So yeah, okay, at Action Park.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's amazing.
Brilliant.
Right for that first listen, because it is, well, it's interesting and difficult at the same time, which I love. But it's bonkers. I mean, it feels very jammed. I don't know what their approach to writing is, but it feels very live and experimental. And there's definitely a sense of humour, not only with, I mean, straight away just looking at the track titles, I'm guessing they have a sense of humour with some of the track titles, like My Black Ass and Bosche's Dick or Bosche's Dick, whatever that means.
Yeah.
But also just with the riffs and the way things noodle and the way sometimes they end the songs is just brilliant. There's a real charm.
Yeah, there's a like sort of sarcastic fake endings.
Yeah.
I can't remember what track it is. I think it's The Admiral.
Oh, that's the one with the stops
going.
at the end. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's just like keeps going. It keeps going.
It's that brass eye sort of style of writing.
And again, it's just that sort of like, again, that's kind of like this. Well, this is the album that obviously I got into with them first, and again, purely on the name of Steve Albini initially.
I prefer the instrumental parts. Like if there was a downside, it would be not fully getting on with the vocals. Like they're fine, but they're not my cup of tea.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So that would be, and again, this would be one of those things where this was a long time ago. I found it very interesting listening to it and trying to think, well, when did this come out? And also, if this came out now, and say it was a new band, what would people make of it? Because it sounds so unlike anything I've heard in years. Yeah, I mean, it does make sense that obviously they were sort of started out in the early 90s. You can hear bits of like Jello Biafra sort of style, and Dead Kennedys in the punky parts, but then it's also very apparent that I reckon bands like System of a Down would have listened to Shellac, and bands like ISIS. I mean, obviously you can hear ISIS, with the way some of the riffs are when they go like a bit more post-rock, and then obviously there's the whole kind of more punk side to it as well. But I've just really enjoyed it.
Certainly, again, for Steve Albini, his former big band was Big Black, which were a really big sort of punk rock band from the 80s. I think they were active like from 81 to maybe late 88, I think. And yeah, you know, like they were sort of known more in the same sort of like a lo-fi punk Black Flag. Again, they had sort of like very sort of iconic, and they played with a drum machine instead of a drummer as well, which was always interesting. But like they had some big stuff, and like, so, you know, Shellac's kind of a continuation of that, but like I you know, but with an actual drummer instead of a drum machine. But yeah, I mean, I've always just loved the sort of the rawness and the, I don't know, just the sort of inventiveness, and also at the same time the sort of like you say, the jam, the free vibe of it, the jazzy side of it. Not that I'm a fan of jazz, but it just seems raw.
Well, it does it without it being too mental.
Yeah.
You know, because you get some bands that are just too out there or too crazy, and it becomes not enjoyable. Whereas this is thoroughly. I mean, you kind of have a smile on your face as you're listening to it, but at the same time, it does dip around. Like, I mean, there are moments where it goes sort of, you know, a bit more post-rock in places with some of the riffs, and then there's some moments that are just full-on catchy hooks, and you know, some of the vocal melodies are amazing. It's just, I don't know, it's the vocals that are so. If anything does sound of its time, it's the way the vocals are recorded.
No, I know what you mean. I mean, the thing is, I think...
which isn't... It's not... I'm not putting it down because of that. But that's the only thing I slightly...
I mean, the thing is, like, you know, I went back and listened to this quite a bit when knowing that you were going to be sort of, like, talking about it for homework. And the thing that sort of struck... I did question that, like you sort of said, if this came out now, how would it be taken? Yeah. And I did think, like, there's echoes of Code Orange, and you know, in kind of some of the inventive things that are going on, and I think that that's kind of like the thing that obviously does distinguish it is the production. I mean, that is the thing that separates it completely, which is something I don't think would wash or could wash now. Is this sort of production if this came out? I mean, it's definitely of the 90s, because the production sound on the more recent albums is definitely not as lo-fi as this.
When did you get this? Did you get it at the time? Because certainly, like in 1994, you know, I'd have been buying like Far Beyond Driven, and I'd have been listening to, you know, a whole wealth of Roadrunner bands.
No,
But I don't remember this ever coming across my radar. Like, I don't remember reading about them or sort of hearing people talk about this.
Right? Band. No, I got it when it came out.
It must have just somehow just completely gone over my head.
Yeah, well, I mean, like,
to check them out.
That was the band I was listening to at the time. Was like, you know, the sort of like lo-fi side of things. So I was listening to like Pixies.
I see. I wonder how much, because obviously I was full on just metal at that point, and I wonder how much the metal press covered it, if at all, whether this was more, you know, your NME.
Yeah, or...
So, I don't know.
Yeah, NME, or I can't remember the name of the other magazine that was around at the time.
Was it Melody Maker? Music Maker? No, Melody Maker, yeah.
So, you know, like...
Yeah, some of the indie ones, rather than the metal, you know, Metal Hammer.
Yeah, so I was kind of like, you know, obviously I'm still listening to Nirvana at the time, even though Kurt was dead by that point. But yeah, so Girls Against Boys, I was into, and
the sort of wave of bands like Helmet.
Helmet, Girls Against Boys, Pixies. Well, though they'd sort of ended by that point as well. But again, it's in that area of like here with the band. And there was a really good record store in Belfast that just stocked all this sort of stuff and had a specific section, and then my mate's older brother again would come back from university recommending all these new bands that he had heard.
Right, cool. I mean, I have to say, I think if I had heard it then, I don't think I would have appreciated it. I think I'd have been far too close-minded at that point.
Yeah, see, I was just really into this. Oh, and Zebedo as well were another band that I was massively into, who... especially the album at the same time, around the same time as this, Bake Sale, is, I mean, did you know anything about Zebedo? Because, I think that they were even more lo-fi than this. I mean, this album is clearly done by an engineer, and, you know, a person with good history and wealth for production duties. So, it's recorded this way because he wants to record it this way. Whereas, the Zebedee album that came out at this time was literally recorded on a 4-track.
Right.
And, it's
Somebody's bedroom.
super lo-fi. And, that was just what I was into at the time because I had a 4-track and I was recording things in that sort of so that's the kind of quality you could sort of knock out if you really tried.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad you really like it.
I have, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And so where should I go next? Because I've not heard any of the other albums.
I say go straight into Terraform and 1000 Hertz, the next 2 albums. And then, like I said, then you will notice the difference in the jump to the next 2 albums. Because, the 7-year difference between 1000 Hertz and then the next album, and then another 7 years from that to the last album.
Yeah.
So there's an interesting kind of jump. But those 3 are obviously, a band that is touring and recording and then touring and recording and touring and then the stop. Then to become a sort of studio and occasionally touring band. So yeah.
We should play a track.
Oh, what are you going to go with?
Well, I'll be honest, I had marked The Admiral down as a favourite, but I do... I like Pull the Cup, and I like The Dog and Pony Show as well. That's really
awesome.
But I'd put down The Admiral, so unless you've got one that you'd prefer to play.
No, that's a great track.
Yeah? Sweet.
Yep.
We shall do that then. Here you go. So that was our homework section. Shellac at Action Park.
I was going to say, you need to think of something for me. No?
I know. I will do a homework for you on the next show, which I will put my thinking cap on, and I'll sort that out tonight and send it over to you. Not sure what the plan for the next show is, with so much new music, so we're probably going to bang out a load of new music on the next one and do a mystery box section again, because I've pretty much got that ready. We'll do a quick bit of film chat, and then we'll close out on Man Mountain. So, get in touch. If you haven't done so, please leave us a review on iTunes. That really, really is the best thing you can do to help support the show.
Yep, tell a friend, and if they don't know about us, just hit the subscribe and download on their phone. Steal their phone and hit subscribe and download. That'll be amazing.
Let me just skim down these films. I won't, unless you want to desperately chat about each one, just stop me.
Okay, well, I was just going to say info@machograndepodcast.co.uk if you want to send anything in, or if you want to recommend anything for homework.
Yeah.
or if there's anything you'd like us to review. But as Pete said, there's lots coming out.
Yeah.
At Macho Grande Pod on Twitter and Macho Grande Podcast on Facebook.
And how much does it cost people to do all this stuff to support us and follow us?
Costs them.
No, it's free. It's free.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. It's free
because we're free. We enjoy doing this for free.
Yeah, we do this for free at the pleasure of my liege. No, we're cursed. We're cursed to do this forever. Pete has cursed me, and there's only the only way to get out of this is
death.
You know, a bargain with a demon. But, you know, that's sadly never going to happen, so I'm cursed to do this for the rest of my life. So the least people can do is to tell a friend about the show that we do. And, you know, if you're in a band and there's some interesting new music you want us to hear, again, info at machograndepodcast.co.uk. We'd love to hear some new music.
Right, I'm just going to skim down these. Stop me if you want to chat about any of them. I watched The Shape of Water, which is the new Guillermo del Toro film. Have you seen that?
Not yet.
It looks amazing. I enjoyed it. But the plot is really quite simple, which just
fish sex.
Yeah, I don't know. I need to watch it again, but I did enjoy it whilst it was on. It's quite a bit of a basic storyline, to be honest. Which when you finished it, you're just a little bit like, okay. The Death of Stalin, which is quite funny, but I didn't find it funny enough to really recommend.
Okay,
it's got some good people in it though. A couple of good horror films actually. The Visit. Have you seen The Visit?
Is that
this is Shamalama-Lama-Lam.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. It is the Shamalama one.
I really enjoyed this. The thing about it, though, is that there is an incredible film in there that probably would be an absolute memorable experience and one for the records, had it not been for the fact that it is shitty found footage. Well, let's say found footage, it's all just somebody filming the whole thing themselves, which is really just lets the whole thing down so much because there really is a good story in there. It was enjoyable. I probably would watch it again. But yeah, I just wish it wasn't that whole camcorder thing.
And the twist is kind of obvious because, of course, there's going to be a twist.
I thought the twist was good.
It's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Of the films that came out that year, I prefer the Vitch.
Oh, that was amazing. Yeah, I love that.
I mean, it's got the similar sort of creepy.
Everything about it, and the goat is just incredible.
Yeah,
I really want. Somebody's done a Black Phillip hoodie that I really want to get.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing a Black Phillip design.
I'll do that. I'll have one of them.
I hadn't sort of decided what I wanted to do, but Black Phillip is definitely a very inspirational character.
I watched Thor, which I thought was really good. Thor Ragnarok.
Ah, brilliant! Yeah, good comedy.
Yeah, it's just really good. Yeah, very enjoyable. Yeah. I, Tonya, which is alright. It's not quite my thing.
Oh, I do want to see that though, because I'm kind of interested in the real story. It's kind of an interesting sort of.
The way they've done it is brilliant, and I'd not seen it before because it's the story from everybody's point of view. And right. It's sort of not forcing it one way or the other, which is a really interesting way to film it.
Because the person it's based on is definitely a interesting character. Obviously, a history of sort of very odd behaviour since the event as well. I mean, it's one of those ones where I don't want it to be kind of a glorifying of what they did because
no. I don't know. I was just left a bit unsure about the whole thing. Like I wasn't really any the wiser about anything. That's the trouble.
Okay, I think you need to read her wiki because it's
and you see, I don't really remember the story.
No.
I don't know. It just wasn't something I knew much about. So yeah, I didn't really get that much from it, to be honest. The Ritual, which is again another good horror film, I thought that was pretty decent, and I think that's it. I really want to go and see Ready Player One because isn't it out now or next week?
I think it's out. What day are we on? It's out this week, but I am skeptical. I am surprised at the sort of good reviews it's getting. I mean, I'm assuming, like you, really love the book.
I do love the book. I mean, the book's not. I wouldn't say it's written well, but it is an incredible, enjoyable book.
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of like the 50 Shades of gaming in terms of the way it's written, but
it's better. Well, it's written better than that. But it is definitely written. I mean, it is lists of things and kind of nerding out about lists.
Don't get me wrong, I thoroughly enjoyed the book, because you just fall in love with the character. The character's really good. You can't help but like him.
What I was going to say is but it's written for. I felt it was written for our generation. It was written for
because of the way it stuffs in all the references.
Specifically 80s. Whereas the film has moved the goalposts of the nostalgia. That's the bit that I'm skeptical about, because you've got things like the Iron Giant and Deadpool. There are, Harley Quinn, and things like that in there, which again, it's moving the goalposts into the next generation's idea of 90s nostalgia. And that's where I'm kind of like, I don't know if that's going to gel with...
Because the book is wonderfully 80s, and partly because of the history of the guy who designed the VR world and the gaming industry he came from is very much the part of the challenges within the sort of quest.
That's the bit that I don't know if it's going to translate well, because, it does specifically reference, those early sort of arcade games, or those early sort of. So I don't, they've adapted it, is all I'm saying, and it's those adapted changes that I am skeptical about. Although the reviews do seem to be coming back positive.
I also watched Annihilation, which is on Netflix. Have you got that yet? Now, I am a big fan of Jeff Vandermeer, and obviously this is the first book of his Southern Reach trilogy. Now, I've forgotten the director's name, Alex Garland. Alex Garland. He said there definitely won't be any more films, and that he filmed this as a fan of the book, but the way he did it was that he went about it trying to remember the book rather than researching the book and doing a faithful, is his own take on the book.
Exactly. He wrote it from the optioned manuscript. So the book hadn't even sort of come out at the time he had started development of the film. So he developed the script based on the manuscript. So it's basically his reinterpreting from using that as the basis to then become his sort of and bearing in mind, Alex Garland is a writer and director who has done some absolutely amazing films, Sunshine, The Beach, directed and wrote Ex Machina. But although it's come out retrospectively, he certainly wrote Dread, but it's come out that he actually sort of ghost directed Dread, and that because the actual director left production, that Alex Garland actually directed it. So he has a very good backlog of great work.
I've seen a few people unfairly saying it's kind of Netflix trash, which is completely wrong, because Alex Garland has said this was shot for cinema. It's just a shame it's ended up being very, very limited cinematic release in some territories. So for us, it's pretty much Netflix only, unfortunately.
Yes, especially it was only cinema in the US.
Oh, was it?
And again, this is off the back. What hasn't helped for me is that it's off the back of
the
Cloverfield.
Which I've still not seen.
Which again is sort of giving rise to the sort of the phrase dumped on Netflix. It hasn't helped that you've got a big budget franchise dropping a film on Netflix, which has actually turned out to be bad, and that's why it's been dropped out on Netflix, whereas this is the studio not having confidence in the film, and it's a cult film. This is a cult sci-fi film. It's very different. It's different from the book, but like I said, it's a cult sci-fi in its actual sort of execution as well as its content. It's pure sci-fi.
It's gorgeous. It looks so cool. Like the design. I mean, it's a creepy yet beautiful film that's also quite sad. Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And unlike Cloverfield, its cast is really strong.
Yeah.
They're big names in almost every position of the cast.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would have loved to have seen this at the cinema.
Yeah, I would have done. I mean, one good thing to come out of this now is if you've watched this, if you've got any passing interest in this film, you have now got 3 incredible books to delve into, because it's very, very different from the book. The books are so weird, and the books are very dreamlike, which is why this, I think, has adapted quite well.
Yeah. And do you know what annoyed me more than anything is the fact that, like, you've got, especially over the last year, you know, we've gone through, you know, like, especially within sort of the Hollywood industry, you've gone through the Me Too thing, and then, you know, like, people pushing for sort of like, you know, inclusion in film production and in cast. Because
this is a largely all-female cast.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's a diverse, all-female cast of intelligent scientists who don't make a loud noise or kick up a fuss about the fact that it's an all-female cast of intelligent sci-fi characters. And, you know, like, it's also inclusive. And, you know, they haven't marketed the film in that way, unlike some other films that have come out this year and last year, where they sort of tried to say, oh, look, but, you know, and then sort of, you know, balls the execution.
I mean, hopefully this low buzz will create a slow burn, you know, and hopefully it'll become a bit of a cult classic.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see this as, you know, like those cinema club days where it actually gets a UK screening, or, you know, like Odeon sometimes do it where they do like a, you know, a Tuesday night screening, a rare screening of a one-off thing, because I would like to see this at a bigger screen, because I think, yeah, okay, the effects seem a little sort of like question, but it didn't really bother me. It's a sci-fi working with its budget, and also doing something interesting, and again, not explaining, like, long periods of just silence, and not explaining things. It's glorious. It just reminded me of like Solaris, and
there's a touch of like Event Horizon and
touch Event Horizon, a touch of Sunshine, another Garland film itself, and even sort of like Primer, in that sort of like high science theory of what's going on, and because I'd love to talk to you about what you interpreted the film as.
There's a lot of metaphors in it, and there are with the book as well. I mean, definitely go check it out if you've not seen it. Definitely, if you do have any interest, go and dig out the first book and see what you think. One of the wonderful things, as much as I love this film, 2 of the very best bits of the book they stay with you, like they're terrifyingly haunting almost, and they're not even in the film. Like 2 of the very coolest things in the first book aren't even in this film anywhere. And one of them is this wonderful bit of prose that constantly sort of is throughout all 3 books. That just wasn't used anywhere, and the other is this kind of tunnel that they've sort of made that into the lighthouse at the end, but there's this tunnel with this winding staircase down, and it's so good in the book. But I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the guys on there, they were pulling out all these Easter eggs and little things I didn't notice, so I can't wait to... Joe's not seen it yet, so I can't wait to watch it again, because there's a whole pile of little tidbits and Easter eggs that they've stuffed in.
Oh, so, brilliant!
Yeah, really, really cool little things. Like there's something about their tattoos which I hadn't noticed.
Yes, she starts. Well, no, if you notice, like, because it's only not the entomologist. Because
in the book they're only known by like there's the geologist. There's the
it's the geologist has like, because she has the sort of like the drinking problem, or, you know, a former drinking problem, I think it is, or drug problem. And obviously the biologist or botanist has like sort of like a self-harming, or is hinted at self-harm. I mean, they're all really interesting characters, and obviously, you know, their reasons for going on this seemingly one-way trip is that they're all very sort of self-destructive characters, or, you know, or ill or whatever. But yeah, the geologist, if you notice, she has this sort of the infinity snake tattoo, and then it appears on Natalie Portman.
Yeah, you see, I didn't notice that at all.
Like, it's that interesting sort of like, hang on a minute, their DNA starting to switch and swap. So yeah, I thought,
Very
and I did, obviously the ending, I didn't know where it was going to go, and there was some very interesting decisions. But yeah, I thought it was a wonderful film.
Good.
I can't wait to watch it again.
Cool. Have you read the books or not?
You recommended them to me because I remember when you finished.
You'll really enjoy
the
them.
third one. But I was reading about the differences between them because I was very interested in seeing what the differences were, because I was interested in like seeing what did Garland take from this, and obviously Garland being a writer himself, he reading up that he's sort of in the same way like the Nolan brothers, sort of like went with their Memento idea. Like obviously he went one Nolan went off and did the Memento Mori book, which is very different to how the Memento film came out. It feels like that same sort of thing of like Garland has taken from the manuscript something that he saw in it, and then he's taken it in his direction and done something very different with it, but at the same time has done a very strong sci-fi film, and these are the sort of films that I sort of love.
Totally. Anything else you want to add film-wise?
No, sorry for ending on such film chat.
Yeah, that's fine. Very good. Right, we are going to close out then on... This is a band called Man Mountain. We're going to play a track called Memory Trace. I gave this one listen and thought it sounded great. It says a melodic instrumental post-rock outfit from southeast Michigan in the honourable lineage of bands like the Appleseed Cast, Sigur Rós, American Football. Man Mountain's debut record, Infinity Mirror, is a journey of emotive dynamics set against a swirling, dreamlike ferocity. And yeah, I've sent this over to you as well. I think this sounds really cool. So yeah, we're going to close out on a bit of post-rock.
Wicked.
Hopefully it won't be so long before the next one. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Laters.
See you later.
Over Macho Grande?
No, I don't think I'll ever get over Macho Grande.